Happy 2024, everyone.
Happy New Year,
Can you
y'all.
believe it? Has anybody written it yet? I haven't written it yet.
Written
Yes.
what?
I typed it.
2024. No, I've typed
Oh,
it. I don't think I've written it. I've
Yeah,
typed it.
yeah. I've typed it. I haven't written it yet.
Was
Let's
that a
all
thing?
take some time to write it down right now.
Is that a thing? Like writing it down? Is that a thing? What does it mean?
You know, I do well when the year changes in the beginning, like the first 2 or 3 months.
That's like 4606.
Yeah. Don't you know that?
It's mirrored. That's why your video's mirrored.
How do I unmirror? Oh, here we go. Hold on.
Yep.
Hold on. I got
Let's
this.
get it.
I got this.
Boom.
20.
Boom!
Perfect.
Oh, we are loopy.
But usually by March or April, I'm writing last year's year.
But we don't write as much as we used to, right? I mean, writing checks and stuff. We don't do that so much anymore.
Yeah.
I read a check.
Same here.
Why am I not surprised that Anthony and Sam write checks? Like
I
I feel
have
like
to. My landlord, who I am not ashamed to call out on this live, makes me write checks to pay rent.
Well, sometimes you
Stupid.
save money versus card transactions anyway. Like, I'd like to save the extra $10
I
to
have
$100.
I have to buy stamps. I gotta drive to the post office.
You actually can have a check sent from your bank.
Yeah.
There's no extra fee.
Yes.
No, I'm gonna complain.
And
Okay.
and I have a checkbook register, but it's only so I have my account number and routing number accessible every time I need it for one of those ACE.
Yeah, you can peek at it real quick.
I love how we have just completely deviated off
Yeah.
topic. We're just
But
gonna
it's all about productivity.
discuss
Because
checks.
If you're wasting time writing a check when you could have just had it done on bill tape.
When I could be grinding it, yeah.
Okay, so this is Checks Culture 101 officially.
Yeah, let's
huh?
change the title.
Official.
It's like sending a fax. Who
Who's
sends
hassling
fax?
you out of your checks?
No, we're talking
yeah.
about productivity 101. We're still on the 101 series. This time we're talking about hustle culture. Should you avoid or embrace it? It's 2024. Some of you probably have some New Year's resolutions. I'm on that Sigma grind set.
what's that?
Nobody knows what a Sigma grind set
I
is.
do, I
Me
do.
and Sam and Jerome.
Actually, I know too. Oh, goodness.
I have no idea.
Must be a guy
I
thing.
do.
We'll explain later.
Too.
Well, what is it? Do we get to know?
It's no, you don't.
You will explain later.
Only Sigma males are allowed to know.
I'm not. Oh my goodness. Okay, we've definitely.
Okay, so are we going to start? Are we
Yes.
starting by defining what is hustle culture?
Yes, absolutely. We should probably begin there for sure.
I'm just throwing memes left and right.
Yeah.
What is a hustle
And anybody
culture?
watching can put their definition in too, right? Because we want to know what y'all think hustle culture.
I'm just going to give you the urban definition, urban dictionary definition of Sigma male grind set.
Oh, thanks. Let's get that out of the way
Please
first.
do.
I just popped that in the chat
Oh,
for everybody
okay.
to enjoy.
You're
I'm not
reading
actually
it
going to
out
read.
of
I'm not going to read this just
I can't click it.
nonsense
I've-
out loud.
I've never actually read it, but I know what it is, and you know what? To each their own. But talking about hustle culture, is anybody wanting to define that?
Go for it.
Are y'all pointing at me or?
I mean, we were hoping you were volunteering, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, like I shared with you before we even got in here, I've not seen a full definition of hustle culture that I fully agree with. But if you just break down what hustles looked like over the last, at least 5 or 6 years, and everyone's saying hustle, grind, and the culture around working and earning your success, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But then you got the question, should you embrace hustle culture or should you reject hustle culture? And I think there are certain things to hustle culture that are noble, things that are noble and other things that you otherwise should avoid. And that's, I guess, what we're talking about here.
I think that, like, my definition of hustle culture kind of, which is similar, but I think there's like an element of like I feel like, you know how a shark never stops swimming? Like, it's like that kind of thought process where like you never stop to work. Like you're always grinding, you're always hustling, you're always like there's no you just what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What can I do? What can I achieve? And like there's this like sense of like go,
Okay.
achieve.
Mhm.
And while a shark never stops swimming, it does change its pace.
And it takes naps.
So,
It's sleep.
and it takes naps.
Mhm.
Right? So,
Has to eat.
yeah, so I'm looking at the question hustle culture, and then should you avoid or, I can't see the rest of it, but or embrace it. I think you guys said. I don't think it's an either or. And I think that's what Sam was saying, right? I don't think it's an either or. I think it's about like, well, so first of all, for me, hustle means, well, it used to mean get your butt in gear and work before you get to play. Now hustle means make sure I'm playing and working. I'm hustling to play and I'm hustling to work. So I've created a balance, which means I'm going to embrace it and avoid it, and kind of in different ways. And if that made sense to you, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. Just tying off of that for a second, you mentioned the shark, Brooke. A shark never stops swimming. Sometimes it changes its pace. Something that, like, listen, that's great if that's going to get the ball rolling or create momentum. At the same time, we as humans have to remember we are not sharks. So we're going to have to stop. Sharks don't have the opportunity to stop. We have the opportunity to stop. And just because you're resting and stopping in place does not mean you're embracing complacency. And I think that's where some messages get lost in the hustle culture.
Sam, I feel like you just told me Santa Claus doesn't exist.
I know.
You're not a shark?
Did Misha think she was a shark this whole time?
You thought she was a shark this whole time.
What kind of shark?
It's okay, Misha. I'm a
Left
mermaid, so it's all good.
I know.
We can hang out.
Actually, I'm not a shark. In my classes, I ask people what would, if they couldn't be a human when they come back to Earth or come into in the world, what would they be? And I would be an immortal singing rainbow musical unicorn. Wait, flying. So I'm not a shark.
All right, everybody else, you get one adjective, and that's at the limit now. So for hustle culture,
hold on.
Yeah, go on, Jen.
Does anyone associate hustle culture with like money? Because
Yeah.
I do, and I'm just curious if anyone else kind of makes that.
Yeah.
I have this kind of funny, like I totally have a chip on my shoulder, like with people who push hustle culture. Cause like I hear that and I hear hustle and I hear have your hustles, I hear side hustle, all these things. And while I understand it's supposed to be associated with making money, I feel like it's associated with people who haven't made money yet. And like they're trying to find a way. Like they are they have so many little hustles and things, but none of them are really successful enough for it to be like the wheels are off. And so I feel like it's kind of like this thing where like they're stuck in this eternal like work zone because they haven't found a place where they can just like be content with what they have. And so it's not even necessarily that I think that maybe they're broke or what have you, but like they haven't found a way to just be cool with what they have achieved. And so it's this constant grind that might be necessary in some cases, but in other cases may not be. I'm not saying that like hard work is not a part of finding your success, because it absolutely is. But I think the goal at some point, I think for most people, is to be able to like slow it down a little bit and like chill. And I think that's where it starts to get toxic traits, right?
Yeah.
I think that word hustle's gone through some changing through today, because the hustle, those toxic traits, working out of your trunk, those kinds of things back in my day, that's the hustle. You got to do and be and continually work that sales. When you're, no matter where you are, what you're doing, there's no off time. Like that description of the shark that didn't rest.
Yeah.
That person who is constantly in that money-making space. the things I was reading today in our research kind of didn't feel like it was necessarily a bad thing, or that someone was scamming you, or in that place of it's kind of like a not ethical kind of behavior. It felt in a lot of the research today that can be an ethical behavior. It's you're getting off your butt, you're getting things done, you're getting your side gig going, you're making things happen for yourself. So I thought that was interesting in the way, for me, as I've gone through time, how that terminology has shifted.
So it's dependent on your framing of hustle culture.
Yeah. But also there's like I see this a lot because hustling is like, it's a keyword now that's geared towards entrepreneurs. So you'll see people like, I think it's Dan Pena and like Gary Vee, who are like prominent social media guys who are promoting this hustle culture and entrepreneurial lifestyle to people who are entrepreneurs and want to succeed. But hustling, I never get to really see hustling to what end. It's always to like, you'll get financial freedom, you'll get, you know, respect or something else that's like really not tangible. It's not a SMART goal really either. It's not specific. It's not really measurable or, you know, time relevant. It's just you need to constantly work and self-improve and never stop. And also buy my books and attend my, you know, speaker events so you can learn how to do this more and more.
I think I'm like an accidental like hustle culture person. Like it's not something I like deliberately go out and do, but I have a tendency for whatever reason to even have my hobbies become something I can make money doing. Like and it's not even something I will like deliberately set out to do. It just sort of happens that way for me. And it's like I don't mean to do it. It just sort of happens naturally. So I think that like isn't like, it's not something I deliberately subscribe to. It's just something that sort of happens. But I wouldn't say that that's me buying into hustle culture. It's just something that sort of happens naturally for me. So like, I don't know, how do you explain that? Am I just like a natural hustler? Like
You're drinking the Kool-Aid.
There are different definitions of hustle. So one of the things I found was hustle can mean to force someone to move hurriedly or unceremoniously in a specified direction. Informally, it can mean a fraud or swindle. But the Urban Dictionary, which sounds more like Brooke, hustle means to have the courage, confidence, self-belief, and self-determination to go out there and work it out until you find the opportunities you want in life. And so you are doing things with your life that you love. And the more you love them, the better you're at them, the more you can make money at them. One of the things in I have different coaching cohorts. We had a conversation about a year ago, because some of us were feeling like we shouldn't be charging what we're charging because it's so easy. We feel like it's really easy. And maybe we're taking advantage of people. And the response was, it's easy because you've been working your butts off to get where you are today and you're good at it. And so therefore you should charge for it and not be taken for granted. So this idea of hustle is contrary to something feeling easy, but yet because you've hustled, things get easier and you fell in love and you do well at it. And therefore you should get paid for what you do because you do it well. All right, I'm off the soapbox, but I need it for height because I'm only 5'1".
No, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a segment of class.
Well,
Aw, Jerome's so sweet.
I think too, I think that's very important to recognize, is like there are different definitions for hustle. When we're speaking of hustle culture, I think we're speaking into a lot of what we've seen now in social media, and even I think this is kind of prevalent amongst coaches and coaching. I think there is a serious vein of hustle culture mentality, hustle mindset achieve mindset. It's actually one of the criticisms that coaches get, or coaching gets, is that it can be too results focused, or focused on goals focused. How do you respond to hustle culture in coaching?
It's, first of all, that's true. And I think if you just put coaching and social media together, do you think it's sexy to share the harder, crusty pieces of your coaching process? Or is it sexier and more marketable to put something like hustle, grind, go after your dreams, never ending self-improvement? It's the status quo. It's been the status quo since Facebook has been Facebook and Instagram has been Instagram. So I don't know if it's so much that coaches are trying to harm or scam anybody. It's just they're going off of a frequency that has existed for so long. And it's almost like you see thousands of other coaches doing this thing and you almost assume that it works. So until you find your stride and until you find your real authentic story with coaching, and that takes time to do it, what do you think you're going to end up doing? Let's repost T. Harv Eker or Tony Robbins or some other motivational figure or some other life coaching figure. It's just they're playing the game until they realize they don't have to play the game to be successful. That makes sense.
I love the use of the word sexy there.
Yeah.
It's the best way I can come up with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's marketing, right? I mean, there's language in marketing, but I want to kind of go back to the thing before the first colon, which is productivity 101. And I think that in every area of our life, to bring it together in balance and in health, that we can't be productive unless we quote unquote hustle for what we want. So whether that's eating right, exercising, working on relationship and communication, we're not going to get that productivity in our life if we're not in progress. I tell the students, we're masterpieces in progress. If you stop being in progress, you could kind of like, I don't know, you won't feel like you're doing your part for you and other people. It doesn't mean you have to constantly improve. It just means that you're moving forward. You're going forward. You're continuing to find ways to be in your vision, to be who you want to be, to live the way you want to be. But I think the challenge is when people start from this place of, I'm not a good person, or I don't have a strong, I'm not a healthy human until I get to this destination. And that is not accurate. And that's when hustle can actually, this hustle culture of go, 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 go. And, we're not human doings, we're human beings, right? So being willing to kind of pause and say, okay, in what areas do I need to quote unquote hustle, right? The pursuit of, like Sue said, the pursuit of trying to, well, she said to prove yourself, and I'm kind of seeing to kind of enjoy yourself and make things happen, right? To get to that productivity place. Because I know when I'm not taking care of myself, my work really is challenged. I don't get the client. I mean, I've got lots of clients coming in right now. It's kind of exciting and scary. And I have to be taking care of myself in order to be able to have that hustle work.
There was something you said that I thought about when, Misha, you made mention of hustling for the things that you want. I just want to pay attention to that one word, want, for a second, because are we hustling in the hustle culture? I feel like half of it would naturally evaporate if we realized that we weren't hustling for the things that we wanted, but we were hustling for the things that we wanted to want. It's like we're being told by these social media influencers, you should want this thing, you should go for this thing, lest you be a societal failure. And if we were courageous enough, and I'm not calling anyone a coward by any definition, so please don't misinterpret what I'm saying here, but if we just wanted to have the audacity, let's put it that way, to step away from those lies that say you inherently suck because you don't have this thing, I don't feel like hustle culture would be standing on the legs that it's standing on right now. So anybody listening to this, I would just go ahead and say, if you got social media influencers telling you to improve and to never stop improving, do you really suck as bad as they're trying to paint the picture of you as, basically what I'm saying? Do you really suck that bad? I don't think so. That's just my
I mean, I do. You may not.
Well, and there's that self-improvement space and that hustle where you're constantly taking more classes, learning more things. When are you actually learning and applying that skill set? In that sense of the hustle, self-improvement, you've got to start applying those skill sets so that, I don't know, you find your peace, you find your groove, you find your self-education, I guess. I think I interrupted Brooke. What were you going to say?
I was just making silly comments like I normally do. I'm here for the comedy relief, aren't I? The other, I think that we're kind of touching on this. There is, in our research, starting to be this theme of redefining hustle culture, or just looking at it in a different way, and that people are sort of pushing back against it now, and less into it. It's lost some of the glory that it once had, but people are still believers in working hard to get what you want, but doing so with parameters and in a very specific way. Do you want to speak into that? I see heads nodding.
Oh yeah. There is a book that I read last year called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and it talked about in one chapter the utilization of margins. And margins is essentially the acceptance of your ability and whatever else is in the day. It doesn't have to be full to the brim. So when it comes to hustling in this case, any definition of hustle that pushes me past what is it? An established margin, a margin that keeps me both full, quote unquote, and satisfied and content. And it just pushes me to more for more sake. That's not hustle. That's not something that I'm going to embrace. So if this is the new wave of hustle culture where there's now an allowance for if there's allowance for something else other than constant self-improvement and filling yourself up to the brim, then hey, sign me up. I will be the spokesperson, the brand ambassador for that kind of hustle culture. Because yes, working hard, that'll never go away. But are you working hard for something you actually want, or are you working hard just to say you're working hard? Are you doing something just to say you're doing something? And what ends is that really accomplishing at that point?
Well, and there's got to be, I'm going to come back to, there's got to be a blend. I have never seen my sister happier until she started working for a company where they integrate play in the workday and engagement and conversation. And look at us. We are productive at CLCI, and we play and we have a good time. And so there's I think the history of the word hustle, working to the grind and bare knuckling it and all that kind of stuff. I think like what you're saying is really accurate, is that it's taking new shape, new meaning, right? Hustle is being sure to hustle that you get your work done and that you do it in a way that is satisfying and fulfilling. And you also hustle to enjoy yourself, right? Not letting that be just a feature, as we talk in marketing, huh, Sam? But actually a benefit, right? And so being able to really focus on hustle in all of its ways. But the companies, and actually I was in a training that was hosted by the NGLCC, the National Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, with Mark Berlini, who is a well-known CEO. And he talked about this level of empathy and emotional intelligence and connection and creating a workplace where people can be seen and heard and valued. And I think that when we have this notion of hustle, work, there's no room for that. But in actuality, when we make room for that, the hustle, quote unquote, is actually 10 times more productive. People are much happier. They get their work done. So I just, figured I'd add that in.
I think that, and that's one of the things that, as this is being redefined, I love the idea of incorporating play. This is something that as, let's say, coaches go out and coach, but also build out their own business. businesses, something to keep in mind is setting boundaries, right? Hustling with boundaries, hustling with purpose, hustling, remembering not to reward oneself because you didn't sleep and be like, man, I worked all night, I didn't get any sleep, I'm so proud of myself. Well, that may not be, that's like a sign of hustle culture, probably not the healthiest or the smartest thing, like, and possibly not the wisest choice, but kind of one of those toxic traits that starts to come with this hustle mindset where we've got to be working all the time. And starting to build out rewarding yourself for taking it easy, rewarding yourself for self-care, right? Rewarding yourself for stepping away, setting things down, and being okay with turning the hustle for work off, because I think it's so insanely important. I think Lisa, you are also named me. I just realized, I looked down, I was like, I sing Lisa agree, and I was like, she has my name.
And I have your name?
I'm gonna
Oh,
fix
that's
it right now.
funny. When I came back in, apparently I want to be you today. And I think, Sam, with the perspective you were sharing, Brooke, which Brooke, I'm not sure, but Brooke, that perspective you were sharing speaks to Sam. So Sam, are you wanting to share your journey a little bit?
Sure. So before I became a coach, I was immersed in a culture that was very much embracing the hustle culture. And out of respect for the company, I will not say the name of it, nor will I say specific names of people. That said, I have no idea how I'm going to react to this, guy. So just bear with me as I go through this. We were brought up in the culture of living your dreams, whether or not they were actually your dreams, shooting for that promotion, getting names and numbers, talking to people, talk to everyone and anyone, make money, build your empire, whatever the heck that even means. And after I got out of that in 2016, I still had some residual messages that drove me to try to build a coaching business with that exact same mindset. And I think what that did for me was a couple of things. Number one, it made me ashamed to do things like sleep or sit still. I was drinking enough caffeine to keep, here, I'll put it this way. The amount of caffeine that I was drinking would turn a silverback with one arm into King Kong, even though he only has one arm. So too much caffeine, number one, too little sleep, too much shame around doing things like being human. Oh my goodness, I think the longest I've stayed up was about 42 hours off of a few cat naps. And I don't know what I was trying to build at that time, but the only thing I knew was if I didn't make this big, if I didn't build this huge coaching empire, I was going to be looked at as a societal failure, an entrepreneurial failure, a failure to my family, a failure to whoever I end up marrying. Just so many lies that I internalized because the message given to me was work and don't stop until you succeed. So I literally tried not to stop until I succeeded. Thankfully, I became homeless first. I literally hustled my way to homelessness. I've told several classes this. Whew. So I'm good, y'all. So in that moment where I literally hit my rock bottom, realizing that the way I was trying to build a business was not working, I had to look at people in a different way. I had to look at myself in a different way. Was my entire identity based around the work that I did and what I accomplished? At that time, yes, that was what I was identifying myself as. And I was walking with that fake swagger, if you will. And in that space, I learned a couple of things. Number one, it's okay to rest. It's okay to not be okay. I don't appreciate how certain areas of entrepreneurship, certain areas of the entrepreneurial culture that preaches hustle, demonizes the 9-to-5 as if it's some big scary monster. Gosh. I had to learn to realign with something that is bigger and more significant than the goals that I wanted or wanted to want. And yeah, trying to find my words here because this story hits me every time. If I had just learned to embrace that sooner, that I was human and I wasn't this, and I didn't suck for not making 6 figures per year in 90 days, then a couple of things. The original adaptation of my business, which is not integrative clarity coaching, would not have existed. But because I went through that, I now understand what my real goals are, who my real self is, who I was really created to be. And anytime I hear things like, and anytime someone comes to me and says, hey, have you heard of this motivational figure? And have you heard of this speaker? I'll look at them, I'll say, okay, I hear what they're saying, and I don't agree with that thing. I don't care how many zeros are at the end of their bank statement. So it helps me parse out what's real and what's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to shut up now. Thanks, guys.
No, I think though, Sam, thank you for sharing that. And I've been in a class when you've talked about your experience. You know, we don't have to drive ourselves down to the ground, and learning that the hard way, as many of us have. You know, what I've found is urgency just causes chaos. Desperation just causes more desperation and loss. And so as we, you know, we talk to our students about like making sure you cast your net, like you're specific with your niche, right? And the more people know what you do and who you serve, they'll be able to find you, right? I mean, that was my journey over the last 4 years of becoming self-employed. Is I was all over the place with who am I, what am I doing? And I was constantly going in a direction that wasn't serving me because I wasn't willing to rewind and start from fresh again, which is what I did last year. And that restart has been such an amazing opportunity because now it's working. So, you know, people can hustle, work, but you also have to give yourself permission to pause, stop, and even rewind. If you want that productivity. And I use this example when I'm teaching. When I transferred to a new school, I took over when I was teaching French. I took over for a teacher who was a native French speaker. And I had 5 different levels, and my French 2s and 3s were not in a good place with where they needed to be by the end of the year. And so I actually took them backwards into level 1 and 2 for several weeks. And I had families mad, like, what are you doing? They're never going to get what they need and the credits and this and that, the other. Those classes far exceeded all the other classes because we did that. So this is just to remind everybody, with that hustle culture and the idea of being productive, don't be afraid to rewind a little bit. Don't be afraid to step back. You're not failing, right? It's that spiral upwards. You hit a notch, it hurts, ow, you might bleed a little bit. You go around, you hit that same notch again, but you kind of sanded it out a little bit the last time, so it doesn't hurt as much the second time. So we just have to remind ourselves to slow down and to breathe and know that if it's not working, really it's not working, then get some support and figure out, okay, what's the next direction we take? Because otherwise you are going to be spinning your heels. You're going to be in that hamster wheel instead of being productive. And then the hustle has no significance at all other than destruction. Yeah.
And it feeds into our psychology of things, of who we are, how we were raised, you know, that imposter syndrome feeds into that. The idea of hustling so much that you don't know where you begin and end. That's I think what you're talking about, Misha, and all of us are talking about. That is not a productive space to be in. Somebody, when I was starting a business, told me I needed to just be on at all times. And I was never a subscriber to that. I worked a lot. I'm not saying I didn't work a lot, but I definitely had my off time, and it became an important space to be on that off time. And what I found when I was on the on time, I didn't have any problem like returning phone calls or answering those people that called during the off time. They got to understand when that was on and when that was off, because it was set hours, right? So understanding it goes back into boundaries. I mean, we're talking productivity 101, get your hustle on or don't get your hustle on. It's be productive. It's be what's the word I'm looking for? Sufficient. And that includes self-care as well.
I would say hustle culture is something that some people I think it's right for them. Like we talked about Gary Vee, that seems like something like he's a guy. It seems like that's something he worked for and he wanted, and he's completely content with living his life that way. I don't think that's for everybody, and I think that's why some people are put off when they see it, and it's all over their social media feeds. It's not necessarily aligning with you. You don't have to force it to align with you. You see all the success that comes with it. Doesn't if you're I think what we're talking about, like just now, Elisa was mentioning. Sorry, I'm trying to kick a cold. I think you have to find what your driving force is, what your engine is, what keeps you going, and you have to align with that. And that is really what's going to make you productive. You don't necessarily have to align with this hustle culture.
Yeah. And if I just want to add something here, since you mentioned Gary Vee or anyone like that, maybe that does work for them. And you mentioned Gary Vee. And I'll offer this. I'm not saying that it's completely inauthentic, but I don't see Gary Vee when he turns the camera off. So I don't know if that's really his face. I don't know if that's really Tony Robbins' face. So when you say it works for some people, does it really work for them, or does it work, or is it just that the image that they portray out into the world on social media because they're influencers, is that just a persona? I don't know. I'm not saying they're fake. I'm just saying until I see what's going on behind the scenes, I really can't answer if that works for them, nor will I even try to speculate on that.
I'm going to venture to say they do have a life. Because a lot
Yes.
of them have relationships. A lot of them have families. A lot of them have outside interests.
I'm going to venture to say they are doing far less work than you think they are. And not because work isn't being done, but because they are paying people to do work for them. And they typically will have a team, will have a group of people, and I'm not saying they're not getting work done, but anybody out there that's huge and successful is not doing it alone. They're not doing it by themselves. And so they might be the face there, but they're the face of a person that is paying a lot of other people's paychecks, putting a lot of money in other people's pockets so that they can do work they don't want to do and just be a face. And that's truthfully. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not making smart business decisions, because I will say they absolutely are.
Or hustling. They could still be hustling.
The ones who are making the bad business decisions are the ones who are not delegating, are not paying, are not figuring out how to embrace the help of others. And those are the ones that are going to grind themselves into the ground. But what we don't think about, I think, a lot of the times is when we see these videos out there on social media, we see these is 9 times out of 10, the person who is in the video isn't the one filming, isn't the one who's editing it together, isn't the one who probably is necessarily even posting it, isn't the one replying to the messages, isn't the one, you know what I mean? There are all these pieces that we don't even, I think, sometimes think about at play. And it's by design, right? They don't want you to think about that. They want you to think about what that face is telling you. But the truth of the matter is there's a whole lot going on. And that's just one part of a much larger puzzle. So something to keep in mind. Does that mean that you can't be successful doing things on your own? No. But when we're starting to talk about big influencer status, these large, people, I guarantee you, as they progressed, they got help. As they progressed, they hired people. It's not a one-man show, as some might make you want to believe.
Well, and this is why, when we're teaching 101, we have that, marketing segment. I do take a moment and I say, okay, let's take off the rose-colored glasses, right? There's work. involved in building a business. It's not all the flowers and dollar signs that everybody thinks there is that very first week or two of your somebody's typing and of the K. Like, where is it coming from? So I think that, and I'm kind of go back to what Sam was saying. I think what I was getting from what you were saying, Sam, is that when they shoot off all this glorious, wonderful, this is the way life is, you're not seeing their real challenges and tribulations behind the camera. And so for you to trust what they're saying, what they're doing, you want to see a little bit more of who they really are. And I think that that's really the challenge with social media and TV and movies, is that we always see the glamorous side, unless it's like Jersey Shore. I don't even know what that show is called. Anyways, we always see like the glamorous side, and we think that that's the grass. That's the green grass. And yet it takes everyone a lot of work to get where they've gotten.
Well, Brooke uses this example, we're thinking about bands. She's given this example about a band, overnight success. Well, that overnight success took 10 years to get to be overnight success. It wasn't just an overnight success. It didn't just go poof. The reinvention of themselves over and over. I mean, I don't know that you guys like her or not. It's not the point. Miley Cyrus. I like her. I like how she reinvents herself. I like how she has taken her life and things that happen and said, and she's got that new song out. I'm in love with that song. I was young. Here I am. I'm getting older now. So that reinvention.
Have you seen Ricki Lee Jones lately? Same thing, like not reinventing herself, but now she's accepting who she is and where she is now and doing it this way.
So the ability to come from a place and realize that you're working a business and understand it's not going to be poof, a business overnight. There is going to be some side hustle going on for a business, but there's still an important piece of recognizing the consequences of decisions you make that allow you to live life as well as get your business on.
I think, the idea of overnight success is an absolute fallacy, right? It takes time and work. And because if we had overnight success, we've seen it's proven to fail. And Anthony, you can speak into this, not because you have, but because we've had this discussion. Lottery winners. What's the percentage of people who win the lottery that have the money 5 years later?
Very low.
It's tiny. Why? Because they have had an overnight success and have no clue how to support and sustain it. And
also, their chances of getting murdered or robbed go up like by 20 times, 30 times.
But that's not exactly why they're losing their money. Anthony.
No.
That's why I ain't playing the lottery. What?
I know. I keep thinking I'm going to win, but I was told I have to buy tickets.
But the overnight success inversely makes you more likely to fail in the long run.
Because you have no tools in place to help sustain that success. And so that it's a total fallacy. It's not the successes that last are the ones that happen over time, that are chipped away at. And it may feel like overnight for others, but the truth of the matter, it isn't. One of the things brought up in this, and I just recently had a meeting with somebody about this, or a marketing consultation, and she said, well, I see all these other coaching coaches out there, and they're saying, if I do this, I'm going to get 6 figures. It's going to be a success. My program is going to be a success. And my response to her in that was, before doing any of that, do your research. Talk to the successes if you can, or look at their businesses and find them, because you should be able to find them, right? We should be able to see that their business is clearly successful. And she was like, I did, and I couldn't. And I'm like,
There you go.
Ask them, what happens if you don't succeed? Ask them, put the hard questions to them. Okay, what happens if I take your course and if I am not making 6 figures in 6 months? What happens? What do you do? How many people? What are the numbers? Because if they're giving you that kind of number as their selling point,
it's a guarantee.
Be able to answer those kind of questions, and you should be willing to needle them with those kind of questions, to ask them, okay, fine, show me people who didn't succeed. Tell me why they didn't succeed. What's the percentage of people that don't make it to six figures, and really put them under the grindstone. What happens, I think, in that is we get really excited about the possibility, and we ask all the questions about how to do it and when it goes right. But those people have their sales pitches down for when it goes right. So let's ask them the tough questions. Ask them the questions about when it doesn't go right. Because in every business, I don't care who you are, it doesn't go right sometimes. And I can guarantee you in those ones, more times out of not, they're not going right. So ask those questions, and don't be afraid to make them uncomfortable when you do. Like, do that. I would, because that's when you're going to get honest answers. That's when you're going to really get a feeling for when they get them out of their sales pitch, right?
And honestly, they cannot guarantee you anything, because why? You have to do the work.
And then it becomes a hustle culture thing where my client base, before I closed my other business, consisted of people who had gone and primarily paid a bunch of money to other people to get results, and walked away with nothing but a guilt trip and feeling beaten up by the process. And it was fantastic. I was like, come in, you're not going to be beaten up at the end of this process. We're going to take care of you. And I was able to correct the mistakes of others, and I built a business on it. But it's so sad that I had to build my business on the failures of others, right? It just was. So, yeah.
I think
Well, it's
Sam
interesting.
has something to say.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all go with that now? Okay.
Jen has to give permission.
Do I have permission, Miss Jen?
Go for it.
Raise your hand
Okay.
higher.
Okay. All right. So when you were talking about asking about the people who didn't succeed, or talking about the people who did, something that I've seen as a marketing strategy, like you said, Brooke, is pointing out to all of these businesses or these business owners that have been successful and not really making mention of everyone else. I'm reading a book right now. I'm reading several of them at the same time. I know it's not good, but listen,
Simultaneously with both hands.
I'm in a phase right now. One remarkable, one tablet, and the actual hardcover book. But the quote is, observing a few instances of a strategy working does not make it universally effective. So I think of that whenever I see these case studies of these coaches saying, hey, this coach made six figures and this coach made six figures. I'm like, well, what about everyone else?
That is not a valid sample size. I'm sorry.
Say that quote again.
Sure.
Reread
The quote is, and for context here, this is talking about, the book is called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. And I'm just reading through this. It's a pretty insightful read. And the talk is about, should you follow your passion? And he makes a case, and the author makes a case for not necessarily following your passion just for following your passion's sake. But the full quote is, some people I've talked to about my ideas have used example of this type to dismiss my conclusions about passion. Here's a case where someone successfully followed their passion, they say. Therefore, follow your passion must be good advice. This is faulty logic. Observing a few instances of a strategy working does not make it universally effective. And he goes on to talk all this research that they've done about people who followed their passion versus followed things that they were actually good at and became passionate about it later on. So I'm still reading through it. I'm still digesting and absorbing and still deciding if I fully even like it. But I saw that. I'm like, wow.
I love that, by the way, because as somebody who has done I can become passionate about just about anything, right? I can get into it, and that can be my driver. So to narrow my focus to a single thing might be cutting off other options, right? I was in the entertainment industry, and I never thought I'd be in a life coaching industry ever. It was never something I set out to do. It wasn't a goal, but it happened, and I discovered passions in it, and I discovered that I loved it, and I discovered that there are so many gifts and things that maybe 20-year-old me would have been like, nah, never doing that, right? But now who I am, I absolutely love it, right? And I love this business, and but it was never something I set out to do. And but I don't regret any of it, because I found my passions here, and there's so much appreciation. Now I'm going to get emotional. So
I need to quote Brooke. When I knew that I was going to interview here, I, of course, did my homework and looked at the website. And, one of the things that stood out to me was Brooke's bio, because it says, I don't have jobs. I have passions that pay. And I was like, I have to work for her. I have to work here. Like, this is it. I was so excited about that quote, and I still know it to this day.
Aww.
And then I got a 2-for-1 because I get Brooke and Lisa to work for her. So, amazing.
Okay, I'm all shy now. So,
All right, let's wrap it up, people. We're too
final thoughts.
Everybody's like, enough with all these emotions. And
So the question was, hustle culture, should you avoid it or embrace it? I think we need to redefine it. That's my answer.
Great answer. I agree.
thank you.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm gonna say avoid it. Get out, because it's a scary little keyword that will, if you start typing in, how to hustle, you're gonna get sucked into all sorts of different types of YouTube videos, and the hustle culture exists outside of you. People are defining hustle culture, and they're gonna define it for you. So get out of it, redefine it, like Misha said, and go your own way. Embrace your own Sigma grind set.
I don't want to hear that again. I would not be sad if I never heard that again.
Oh my gosh.
this reaction was real. That was a real reaction. Oh my gosh. Should you avoid it or embrace it? I think you should avoid anything until you have an actual idea of what you want, where you want to go. Stop focusing on the things you want and focus on the things you actually want, and get in touch with who you are too. Because once you do that, you'll start to be able to parse out what's practical advice from the noise. And at that point, you're not embracing some arbitrary definition of hustle culture. Like Misha said, redefine it. Don't just redefine it as a standard, but redefine it for yourself. What practically fits you? What definitions of hustle, what principles of hustle culture makes it so you can be both successful and sustainable? Because success without sustainability makes you a one-hit wonder anyway. So you don't want to do that. Redefine your hustle, redefine your success, and implement from there, and put to the side whatever else doesn't fit.
Which means you've got to get to know yourself. It means you've got to do the work. It means you've got to spend time researching. It means you have to create your space of knowing what's important to you and what your boundaries are. It means there's a lot of work involved in creating your business, because you have to be defined as well. While we're defining the hustle to be a new word, new terminology, new definition, you've got to define yourself.
I'll go if no one else is ready. I like the thing you said, Sam, about living the dream, but is it your dream or not? Because right now I'm getting bombarded with coaches coaching coaches to coach coaches on this lifestyle of financial freedom, be your own boss, 4-hour work week, 10 new clients a week. And I'm just like, that's not even my dream. Like, sorry. So I'm not going to get involved in that type of hustle culture. That's what it looks like to me, because that's not my dream. My dream is to literally help people and make some money doing it and have a ton of fun.
I love that. By the way, I'm gonna run to the restroom in a second, but before I go, I'll give my final thoughts. I absolutely love that, defining what your dream is, and knowing that, and letting it be your dream and not what you're told to want. Not, and that's, that's sometimes so hard to do though. Get a coach, but like truthfully, like digging down and finding out what are my core values, when am I working in my, what is working in my core values. So like what do I have to do to feel good putting my head on the pillow at night and feel fulfilled, and that doesn't have to be 7 figures, a mansion, traveling the world. That could be, I want to hang out with my family on Saturdays, free dive on Sundays, and be able to take it easy and play board games every so often, right? It doesn't have to be the biggest, baddest thing. And I think that's kind of part of where hustle culture gets muddy and screwy, is it's really, really putting a lot of emphasis on a single person's interpretation of success. So yeah, that's all for me.
Jarrell.
I mean, you guys stole all the good things to say, but I do want to just go ahead and focus back on what I mentioned. I think the most important part about just finding out a process and being productive, which I think is really, it's going to be the basis for what we talk about all month. What I take out of this is, again, just making sure that you understand what your driving force is and aligning with that. If your driving force is desperation or just to fit in, that's probably going to run you into the ground. So you want to make sure that you have something that you believe in as far as that driving force is concerned. And then, like we also mentioned, throw in some balance, give yourself rewards, plan a fake holiday for yourself at the end of the year and celebrate it by yourself. Do things like that just to make it all worth it in the end.
Yeah. If you're asking yourself the question, if you ask yourself the question, what am I comparing myself to? That'll slow you down. Right?
Mhm.
Maybe you're trying to do something that you don't need to do and forcing a hustle on yourself that you don't need to have.
All right,
Absolutely.
everybody. I think that'll wrap up our conversation on Productivity 101. Hustle Culture. Brooke is back. I'm making sure I do the sign off correctly. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. We got to do our own hustle as a company and doing as much as we can to help ourselves. Tell everybody.
One thing I have to say thank you to everybody that watches, because we just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is so thank you guys.
That's the hustle. Right there.
That's the
It's very exciting.
hustle.
And if you want to learn more, be sure to take our classes, Coaching 101 and Coaching 102, where you can learn how to be a life coach.
CertifiedLifeCoachInstitute.com.
Woo!
All right.
Yeah.
Where you got really good, beautiful people helping you find a new path.
Mhm.
You think I'm beautiful?
I do.
All right. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.